My name is Joan Benning, and I made the Women's 91st Cursillo at St. Pius X in Sealands Grove. I sat at the decuria of St. Monica, and I'm a member of St. Catherine Drexel Church in Mechanicsburg. Today I'm talking about, from the book, Whom Shall I Send? Chapter 2, Prayer as Communion with God. We are all called to follow Jesus, but Jesus never said it was going to be easy. And Jesus never watered down his message. We are all called to perfection and holiness. As Cursistas, we are all called to live our fourth day. But we are not all called in the same way. So how do we discern our calling? And that's through prayer. Jesus was the perfect prayer. He prayed for 40 days in the desert. He prayed before he chose his apostles. He prayed before his passion. And he prayed as he was dying on the cross. In Luke chapter 6, verse 12, we hear that Jesus prayed in communion with God, his Father. What does that mean to be in communion? The Webster Dictionary defines communion as an act or instance of sharing. In our book, Father Salmani defines communion with God as working with God. So when we are praying in communion with God, we are sharing in the work with God. It's interesting to note that the word liturgy is defined in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 1069, where it states, in Christian tradition, liturgy means the participation of the people of God in the work of God. Through the liturgy, Christ continues the work of our redemption. So, when we pray in communion with God, we are sharing in the work of God. If our prayer is only for our own good, our prayer is only doing half its work. Our prayer must also work for others. The examples of this are from prayers of Jesus, David, and St. Paul. At Gethsemane, Jesus prayed for the power and strength to complete his passion and death for our salvation. David prayed he would carry out his duties as a worthy servant of God. And Paul prayed for power for himself and for us to be able to live upright lives. This is why prayer, holiness, and formation is often linked with evangelization. Prayer as working for God can be depicted as the vertical and horizontal dimensions of the cross. The vertical dimension is God, or divinity, and horizontal is others, or humanity. Prayer without apostolic witness can be a selfish exercise. It's like doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. An example of this is fasting during Lent. If we are fasting, not because we are offering sacrifice, but because we want to lose weight, we are doing the right thing for the wrong reason. Jesus' prayers were always directed to doing his Father's will and his Father's work. So what does that mean for us as Catholics and as Cursistas? Our prayers need to be in communion with God as well. We need to be aware that when we are praying, we are working with God to do his will. Palanca is a good example of prayer as part of God's work. We are working for others. If we pray in communion with God, we can be the fuel for the work of the Cursillo movement. We can set the standard for Christian service to Cursillo, the church, and the world. De Colores.